All right, stop. Collaborate and just listen.
What's up with Antarctica? It seems to be capturing the mind of everyone. Fascination in the modern period, I think, derives from the 90s. Because it was in the 90s that under Operation Deep Freeze, President Bill Clinton went down to Antarctica. And he did not inhale because that air was so cold. Now, I don't know why President Clinton went to Antarctica, but following this, he made a speech to about 5,000 people at a live audience in New Zealand. And there was the International Antarctica Center Conference. And he visited one of the bases there, one of the U.S. bases. So in the 90s, back to Honest Bill, we had trips to Antarctica. Now this one is interesting. This is the next one that I could find. I'm sure there were more, but in 2013, Prince Harry and the royal family went to the South Pole. I don't know if this is supposed to be them here constructing a tent. Yeah, right, like he was staying out in the tent in the middle of this. Here he is inhaling what Bill didn't inhale, I guess. Go ahead, Harry. I want you to inhale. Inhale what I didn't inhale. I want you to hotbox this right after me, Prince Harry. Is that some good stuff or what? And we don't really know what the purpose of these visits have been, especially since this one seems to have been scrubbed. As you can see, I found it on Wayback Machine. This says it had to do with walking wounded teams and some charity. Yeah, right. And some of the pictures have been deleted since this has to do with probably secret stuff, I would guess, but I don't know. It says he sets up with the wounded team, probably like a Wounded Warrior Project type front or something. And supposedly he stayed the night on the ice, but yeah, I'm dubious of that. Now, one reason it's relevant, of course, is because there were a lot of expeditions back during the period of King George and Edward, and I think even under Queen Elizabeth herself. Everybody's familiar, I think, by now with Admiral Byrd and his diary, the famous Byrd Diary. I don't really have too much of an opinion on that. I don't really put too much stock in the claims of any of these Royal Society geologists or paleontologists. Pretty skeptical of all of it. But it is interesting that for obvious strategic reasons, the region was useful for geopolitical machinations to any power bloc, whether it was the Atlanticists in the British Empire, and then their offspring, their Medusa, monstrous offspring, Americana, and then also the Axis powers, also wanting a chunk of the ice, a piece of the iceberg, right, with the Soviets or with the Nazis. I know the Axis, the Soviets weren't Axis, I'm just saying. All the Axis powers and the Soviets. Everybody wanted a piece of the iceberg. And my question here is, what do you guys think? I don't have a set opinion, but I'm going to take you through a whole bunch of articles, all the ones I dug up, and I want to see what you guys think. What's the most reasonable assessment here? And also, I think there is maybe some justification for the possibility of suppressed, hidden, unknown, ancient civilizations or structures. There's no reason why that couldn't fit in the biblical narrative. In fact, it makes more sense in the biblical narrative. I mean, I consider the possibility that the reason that the continent is frozen and there is a geological record now of living life forms underneath the ice is because when the flood happened, it froze. Seems kind of commonsensical to me, but again, I'm speculating, and we're going to look at some more articles. Presidential visits. Why are all the world leaders visiting? And then I'm going to crown it off with kind of out there thesis. What if John Carpenter's The Thing was predicting all this? Because The Thing, 1982, and I recognize that it's a remake of The Thing from Another World, an old black and white movie. But could either of those films be predicting something on a kind of mysterious level about what would be revealed in Antarctica? They could try to tie it into some kind of made-up alien nonsense. That's entirely plausible. I don't know. We'll see. Here we see Juan Carlos of Spain, certainly somebody who is deep inside the global elite power structure. He visited in 2004 to the Spanish bases, and we see an interesting name for that island there, Deception Island. It's quite a name. One wonders what the purpose of these visits is. Maybe it's deception. But Juan Carlos, of course, is, I would assume, a Freemason. And part of this global cabal, and like all the others, he made his pilgrimage. It's almost like a kind of New World Order Mecca or something, a kind of pilgrimage. I'm not saying everybody. Not everybody that goes there is a bad guy. But we do see this weird tendency of the global elite going there for some reason.
Alright, stop. Collaborate and just listen.
Alright, now one of the first ones that always comes up that we want to check into is the claim of the pyramid. The huge triangular structure that has popped up on YouTube and a bunch of other sites, claiming to be an actual pyramid. The image could show instead a nunatak, a natural mountain peak that sticks out of glaciers. Now, yeah, that is possible. And when we look at this thing, there's a little bit of a jagged edge here, so maybe. However, setting aside this little jagged edge, does that look like a mountain? I mean, I don't think so. Now, I think it's ridiculous to think, John Kerry went there whenever this first popped up. This is 2016. Oh, John Kerry went there because there's an alien base. So they always tie it in with the alien nonsense. But I do have to say, just off the top of my head analysis, looking at that looks like a pyramid in Egypt. It doesn't look like a completely natural structure. And we do have the coordinates, so I'm going to show you the coordinates here in a second. And notice this here. This is a funny little addition that they link in. Links between conspiracy, narcissism, and self-esteem. So if you're a conspiracy theorist, you have a high level of self-esteem, and you're a narcissist. That's funny. So it's a nice little bit of psyops that they, I guess, included in here in the midst of this goofy article about the pyramid. But what I want to look at a couple debunking arguments here. Sites, the skeptics were quick to jump on this to debunk it. So let's see what their arguments are, and let's take some looks at other pictures, other images, which are even better quality than this blurry ass thing. But I think it looks like a structure to me now. And again, if you're familiar with the Piri-Reis map, and if you're familiar with the arguments that people have made for a long time about there being an older green vegetative life system underneath all the ice, why is it strange to think that there could have been civilization there? Again, if the flood was global, then the flood flooded some ancient civilization. We don't know. I think that what I always try to stress on these kinds of issues is that there's way more that we don't know than what we do know. And of course, I am a fan of the Genesis account. I do think it records actual history. 95% of the world rejects the Genesis account, even though most of the world's ancient mythologies have a flood myth, right? The Gilgamesh epic, other religious traditions record the flood myth. Ancient Chinese tradition has a flood myth. So it's entirely possible. We just don't know. But modern man, scientism, it's much more interested in stressing and giving the impression that they do know. Now, in a lot of things they do know, but in a lot of things they don't know. And that's what I always try to stress. So let's look at some of the other articles related to this supposed pyramid.
All right, stop. Collaborate and just listen.
Now, this image is one of the first that is interesting because you can see it's contrasted with the natural formations around it, assuming that the image is real, right? I mean, this could be faked, but it's pretty clear that this structure is very different from this structure. This is a natural formation. It's all jagged. There's no geometrical harmony. And here we have, again, not just three, but there's also a fourth side that you can't see from this angle. But in my mind, that is a clear contrast. Obviously, these are not similar. Could there be a pyramid that formed naturally? I suppose it's somewhat possible, but very unlikely. Now I want to talk about one of the first debunking ones that comes up. There's a couple, but IFL Science, of course, their total fedora neckbeard run. And the first thing they say is, oh, we can easily debunk this because the aliens have constructed other mountains that supposedly look like pyramids, and they're making fun of it. They're just saying, it's not aliens. Now, I'm not saying it is aliens, but it didn't take aliens to build the pyramids in Egypt. It took humans. But there could have been humans that built these pyramids. So that's what they're only giving you two options, which is interesting. You either have to adopt the retarded alien theory, or you have to adopt the purely Neil deGrasse Tyson skepticism theory. Well, what if I reject both of those? Well, that's a false dialectic. And again, I keep an open mind on this topic because I don't think it's settled. I don't think there's a definite proof, and there's always the possibility that something like this could be. And it could be the reason why many of the world leaders take their Mecca pilgrimage to Antarctica. But they give a couple blogs that they say refute this, one of which is Matterhorn. And the argument is that, well, look, the Matterhorn is a pyramid. That doesn't look like a pyramid to me. Now, it does look like there's an interesting little boxy formation there. So maybe you could argue that is roughly similar to something angular. Maybe this, I don't know. But that to me does not look at all like that. That looks very different. This, not one bit. I don't see anything pyramidal here in the Matterhorn.
All right, stop. Collaborate and just listen.
So most of the sites will give the coordinates for this object. So let's zoom in here. Ice Ice Baby. What do we see? Here it is from above. That's as far in as you can go. And to me it looks like this is kind of an angular thing. I can't tell what's going on here, but here it's all, why is this all blurred? You'll notice this too if you get lost in a rabbit hole of Google satellite staring, that a lot of this stuff is like blanked out, so you can't even tell. But it almost looks like there was maybe three things here. I don't know. But this does appear square too, right? I mean, from above, you can kind of see the outline of a square. It doesn't look like it's just random formation. I mean, here, yeah, it's a little fuzzy here, but it also could be, that just could be snow built up there. I mean, we don't know. And the other thing I wanted to look at was that when you compare it to the mountain ranges around it, I mean, they clearly look different. This is the closest that I could find to something approximating it. And yeah, that looks, I think, significantly different. Another reason why, too, that we could consider this possibility is the, again, and why is this specifically blurred here? Right? I mean, we can see everything but this area. It's blurred. And they do that a lot. And they even say that they blur, bases and stuff like that. But, why all of these weird things in Antarctica? A whole bunch of weird things in Antarctica. Not just one thing, right? If there weren't a whole bunch of weird things, I think it wouldn't pique people's interest and fascination. But it is one of the last, we're told, unexplored continents. Right? Very few people have really fully explored it. So there's a lot that we don't know. But again, if I had to assign a percentage, I would say what? I mean, this doesn't look like the pyramid on the Mars bullshit, right? It doesn't look like that. I would say, I don't know, 50-50? What do you think? Tell me below in the comments what you think, or if you have any speculations on it. Again, the debunking arguments I found to be pretty weak on this one, because you can actually go and see it here, right? And initially the debunking arguments were, oh, it's all fake, that doesn't exist. But there's actually, people have turned up quite a few rare looking images of it, rare photos of it, since it's been discovered.
Alright, stop. Collaborate and just listen.
Here, this one's even crazier, because it's almost like these mountains, it's almost like there's a pair of them that look like they could be pyramids. And then, this structure here, do you see a cat face here? I kind of see a cat looking face. That's just me. But no, these are probably natural formations.
Alright, stop.
Now, when I was a research assistant in grad school, I did actually find old articles archiving the secret German bases there. There are actual secret German bases that were built during World War II. So that's real. I don't know how extensive that is. Could that be what's covered up? Could that be what the structures are that we're going to get to here in a little bit? I don't know. But, I did want to mention, the expeditions of people like Rudolf Huss, different German figures. But if you want more of the historical side of this, I'm going to link in the description the great documentary by Aaron and Melissa at TrueStream. They did a really good video on this that's pretty extensive. So I'll leave that in the link below if you want to get into the history. I'm just looking kind of more at the recent stuff and then how it might tie into John Carpenter's The Thing. Now, other interesting facts discovered, as I mentioned in relationship to Aaron and Melissa's documentary, is that under the ice, it appears there are fully existing life forms, or at one time there were. So we're finding structures that include entire trees, things like this have been uncovered in ice. We've seen deep, like a mile or two underneath, they have discovered other life forms, bacteria, and it's all being tied into the climate change agenda. So climate change is being linked to this to some degree. In fact, if you saw the article that was about Harry and the royal family, they were saying that their visit was about climate change, and the life forms that are frozen under the ice, supposedly the DNA and the RNA, they're going to run all these tests, and they're going to tell us exactly, what led to the creatures and their, retreating, and why they were frozen, what happened, and how they evolved to be able to live in the ice. Now, this is interesting too, because there's an X-Files episode, there's an X-Files movie that I'll mention as well that has all these same themes. In fact, there were X-Files episodes talking about life forms inside the ice, inside Antarctica. I think from season 1, back in like 1993, they were talking about the same stuff. So again, you have to wonder what's real, what was planned ahead of time, how authentic is this? It's hard to say, but it is still fascinating. Another interesting element this year was the square iceberg, which NASA, once again, said is completely normal. Nothing strange about this. It just happens. All these things just happen. Everything just happens. Nothing is meaningful. Nothing connects to anything else. Everything just happens. This is what professors at the state universities call the shit happens view of history. Nothing has meaning. Shit just happens. Now, to me, that doesn't look like a normal iceberg. Again, it could be fake. I suppose it's possible that this is a natural formation. I have seen some icebergs that have these kind of angular patterns, but once again, that's pretty rectangular to be an accident. So I don't know. And why are the explanations always that it means nothing? Every explanation about Antarctica is it means nothing. It means nothing. If there's nothing interesting in it and it means nothing, there's nothing worth studying, nothing strange about it, why is everybody going there, and why are there a zillion bases there? Now, the Piri-Reis map is famous because it comes from the Ottoman Empire from 1513, and it appears to discuss or talk about either Cuba or places like Antarctica. And if it is Antarctica, or if it's not South America or something like that, then it shows Antarctica as having life forms, as having lush pastures and animals and so forth. So that would actually kind of go well with the theory that maybe at one time, maybe even recently, it wasn't frozen over. We don't know. But this is one of the things that most people point to, and it is a real map, but exactly what it's referring to is hotly debated. Now, I wanted to throw this one in because of these endless science websites. There's a million different science websites. Science is so cool. Look how cool science is. Science is cool, dude. Cool kids like science. And of course, all these sites are complete propaganda. It's all total scientism, total Neil, Mike deGrasse Tyson level nonsense, propaganda, climate change, GMOs. But notice that this Live Science article is willing to admit that, yeah, there's a bunch of crazy stuff underneath all the ice, but it's a lost continent. So I thought all of this was not acceptable. I thought we couldn't believe in the lost continent. So no, you can believe in a lost continent, just don't believe in creation. Don't believe in the existence of God. Oh, and by the way, if you do want to go into the realms of the esoteric and the fringe, just make sure that you believe that it's the aliens behind Antarctica. Yeah, definitely not a flood, definitely not creation. It's all those aliens. They're running everything. It's the DMT elves, bro. I do a DMT trip. Saw the elves. The elves taught me about Antarctica, bro. The elves were like, Antarctica, ice baby, bro. That's where we come from. Now the next one is almost directly out of the thing. It's almost like the base in the thing, or the Norwegian and the American bases in the thing, got covered up by snow, and they're saying, oh, it's a 2 kilometer long city by melting the ice. It was unearthed. Who melted this ice, by the way? What does that mean? But here you can see it does appear to be some sort of regular pattern here. Is this one of those abandoned, Cold War bases, World War II bases? It's really hard to tell what they are, but people are digging up some very interesting things on Google Earth, and this just keeps going. Again, are they planes? Like, it looks like maybe old planes that were frozen over, and it just keeps going and going and going. Look at that. That's obviously not a normal formation, right? So somebody zoomed in and found this. Again, people can find these things because this is a largely uncharted continent. And what is that? It's not natural. Is it something from World War II? Could be. It's a weird formation, though, for World War II stuff. who knows? I just found the whole Antarctica thing fascinating. When I watched Aaron and Melissa's documentary, I thought, man, there is something going on there. I honestly have no idea what it is. Here's another structure somebody found. Again, could be from World War II period. Can't even tell what it is. I don't know. I mean, is this buildings, barracks, bunkers? Who knows? And I doubt we're going to find out, right? I mean, we're not going to be told. Nobody's going to go and look at this stuff, because this stuff is all under, international treaties and whatnot. Now, you can go to Antarctica. It's not true that nobody can go there. That's a bunch of nonsense. But it seems to be pretty highly regulated. That does seem to be true. So, there could be various reasons for that, for spying, and for people, they want it regulated to see who's looking at whose research and all the different bases there. But it's a very, rugged landscape. People haven't fully charted this, and the same is true of Canada. There's areas of Canada that are uncharted, like whole giant valleys inside, surrounded by ice, freezing temperatures, and then there's these really weird, almost tropical valleys in Canada that very few people have gone to. I watched some documentaries on that a couple of years ago. So I don't know. There's a lot that we don't know, but what these structures are, if anybody has any insight, feel free to comment below. And lastly, most relevant to the thing, is this crazy looking structure that almost looks exactly like the ship that has the alien in The Thing. If you remember that scene in The Thing, the ship crash lands in Antarctica. This is what sparks off the whole Twizzlers monster replicator that infects the dog and gets the whole John Carpenter madness going. And it also looks exactly like the X-Files movie alien ship in Antarctica. Why is it that the alien ships are all in Antarctica? I wonder if the pop culture, was it preparing us for the revelation that we're going to be exposed to some alien nonsense? They're going to say these structures, maybe there are real structures that they're going to say are alien. They're going to promote the panspermia agenda that I talked about in my first book, Esoteric Hollywood. If you want a good critique of that, get your signed copy at Jay's Analysis. Get your signed copy of Esoteric Hollywood, Sex, Cults, and Symbols in Film. And I cover John Carpenter in the new book as well. I cover They Live in an extensive chapter in Esoteric Hollywood 2, both available at my website, jaysanalysis.com.
Alright, stop. Collaborate and just listen.
If you like this analysis, be sure to click subscribe and give me a thumbs up down below. Also, be sure to check out Jay's Analysis and definitely click the bell down below to be sure you get the updates.
Alright, stop. Collaborate and just listen.